After 4 years of development, Sonic FronTEARS is finally out. That means we're in the reviews destroy the game and be really disappointed phase of the Sonic cycle. But I'm a pretty optimistic guy. I like to see the glass half full, even if it's half full of a questionable yellow liquid. And despite many reviewers being really harsh on it, most people actually playing the game are saying really positive things. Sure, if you go on Reddit, people will say, calling it the best Sonic game in a long time isn't as good of praise as you think, lol 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 lol. But who cares? It's basically a meme these days to dunk on Sonic, and I bet most of the people haven't even played the game. But I have. I picked up the Steam version on release day, and even just a few hours in, I was shocked at how many emotions it made me feel. But only one thing brought Sonic FronTEARS to my eyes. So join me as I recount my emotional journey brought on by Sonic's journey through the Starfall Islands. I went into Sonic FronTEARS as blind as I could. I like to avoid trailers and spoilers to the best of my ability. That way I don't let the hype machine build games up beyond what they can deliver. And really, I just hate when game plots are spoiled for me. So all I really knew about this one was there's Sonic, an open world, and a digitized sickly Victorian child floating around being all creepy. And frankly, just with that, I was sold. The game starts with a very somber title screen, which is very different from the rest of the series. Usually there's some upbeat theme getting you hyped up for the adventure ahead. But not today. This is going to be different. The story, as it so often does, starts with Eggman up to a shenanigan. He's putting one of his inventions onto a stone pillar thing, and it lights up. Menacingly! It spawns some spooky robots, but then his new AI companion says it has to protect Eggman, and it somehow sucks him in? Yeah, like that. Cut to Sonic, Tails, and Amy tracking the Chaos Emeralds to the Starfall Islands. Apparently something drew all the emeralds here, but as they're playing near the new land, a giant wormhole opens up and pulls them in. It drops Sonic into a twisted version of this obscure gaming location called, let me just check my notes here. Green Hill Zone. And it's time for some of that classic Boost-era Sonic gameplay. And to me, it felt pretty good. Kinda. The buttons definitely weren't mapped how I expected them to be. I tried all the face buttons on my Pro Controller, and all I could find was jump and slide, and later when I got close to an enemy, the homing attack. I just assumed everything else, like the lightspeed dash and boost, must be upgrades or something that you get later. But I was just a dummy who didn't go to the control options screen, because all that stuff is available from the get-go. Boost is mapped to the right trigger, which makes enough sense, but the lightspeed dash is mapped to clicking in the left analog stick. I did not like that, and I didn't figure either of those out until we were on the second island. But enough about me being bad at video games. After exiting Green Hill Zone, Sonic lands in a green, hilly zone. Huh. But now it's raining, and a disembodied robot voice speaks to Sonic.
We've been trying to reach you concerning your car's extended warranty.
Hang up, Sonic! Hang up! It actually tells him that he is the key, and that he needs to collect the Chaos Emeralds and defeat the Titans. Doing so will merge the dimensions, which doesn't sound like a good idea to me, but Sonic's gonna Sonic. The other dimension in question is Cyberspace. And no, that's not a gross chat room for kids in the 90s. It's the place where Eggman got sucked into, and it turns out Amy, Knuckles, and Tails are all trapped in there too. Kinda. More on that in a bit. This is where the game starts to open up. After way too many tutorial screens. You have camera control and you can run around freely. You start filling out the map by doing little puzzle things. You start collecting the metric butt-ton of trinkets this game has to offer. You fight things with, at first, a very limited combat system, but it quickly expands to, well, less limited. And fighting gives you even more trinkets. And for me, this part of the game feels great. Bouncing off springs and grinding around in this open environment brought on a sort of zen sensation that I don't get from a lot of video games. I would completely lose sight of what my destination was and just be like, ooh, what's that do? And get lost in this expansive map. But on the first island, things are pretty basic, but later on it gets pretty involved. And it's all the Sonic moves that you've seen before, but they feel somehow different in this new setting. You're using the homing attack into springs, balloons, enemies, etc. You're jumping, double jumping, you even have a stomp for quick descent. Rail grinding feels great, and transferring between rails is so clean and easy. And maybe that's not a surprise anymore, but after playing Sonic Heroes recently, it feels so good to be able to trust the game in that department. You've also got the new Psy-Loop ability that leaves a trail behind Sonic, and when you make a circle around something, stuff happens. You can circle bad guys or signposts, or just make circles for fun and get rings. You can even make an infinity symbol and get unlimited boost for a while. Exploring the island just feels amazing when it works. It's not perfect. Sometimes the camera gets confused and you can't see or lock on to do the homing attack. Your flow gets unexpectedly broken, sometimes while you're over the edge of the island, and you die. But there aren't lives in this Sonic game. You just try again close to where you left off. And this is a huge upgrade in my opinion. Sonic games usually promote exploration, with branching pathways that usually have a fastest path that is very difficult to maintain. And when you fail to stay on the fast route, that often means you lose lives and you have to start over. But in Sonic FronTEARS, you can keep trying to master these tricks without the worry of a game over. Instead, you just get a screen that passive-aggressively tells you how to reach the tutorials. Yeah, casual. This stuff is all great. It makes me feel so happy. I could move on to my next point, because I'm not crying yet. So what's all the puzzle doing and killer robot fighting for anyway? So we can get all these knickknacks, doodads, thingamabobs, tchotchkes, thingies, and the shinies. As I said before, your goal is to collect all the Chaos Emeralds. To do that, you have to unlock them with these vault keys. But to get the vault keys, you have to go into the portals to Cyberspace and beat the short stage inside. You get one vault key for every task you accomplish for each stage, like just beating the level, collecting the 5 red rings, finishing with a certain number of rings, and beating it before a set time. Pretty standard Sonic stuff. But you can't just go into Cyberspace portals all willy-nilly. You need portal gears to open the portal. How do you get the portal gears? You beat up the plethora of enemies and mini-bosses strewn across the island, and then they'll drop one for you. But what if you're not strong enough to beat the mini-bosses? Well, then you need to gather these spiky hearts and blue fruits to raise your attack and defense stats. And you gotta beat up these littler robots to get skill points to learn new combo moves. And you gotta collect this game's Chow equivalent, the Coco, that exists all over the island. I like to call them my babies. And don't tell the rest of them, but Tumbleweed Afro Coco is my favorite. If you bring the little Cocos to the Coco Elder, he'll upgrade your speed and max number of rings you can hold. So, to recap, you gotta get the fruits and the Cocos to get strong, to fight the bosses, to get the gears, to get the vault keys, to get the Chaos Emeralds.
You punch the trees to get the wood, you get the wood to build the cabin.
Or you can skip a lot of that by collecting these purple coins and going fishing with Big the Cat. And guess what, y'all? They made fishing, in a Sonic game, fun. It's really simple compared to how they did it in Sonic Adventure 1, and way funnier. I was cracking up when I started catching random shit like photorealistic poisonous frogs, cans, a hammerhead freaking shark. Oh, what's Sonic reeling in this time? Ooh, looks like you landed the big one. You, subscribing. Anyway, the more you fish, the more fish coins you get. Yes, more currency. But with fish tokens, you can buy everything I listed before except for the Chaos Emeralds, allowing you to skip bosses, cyberspace, and running around almost entirely. I have a feeling this is going to be a big, I don't know, part of the speedrun for this game. The last knick-knack you have to collect are memory tokens for your buddies. You eventually run into each character on one of the islands trapped in this strawberry? You release them, but they're trapped in a limbo between the cyber and physical world. You gotta gather the memory tokens to interact with them around the island, and the tokens are usually your prize for doing those obstacle courses strewn across the map. I was genuinely surprised how good the interactions between Sonic and his friends are. Like, right off the bat, Amy isn't the same character she was back in the adventure days. Sonic and her's relationship has matured, and you can tell they've really grown close. She's still a romantic by all means. A lot of her conversations involve helping some Coco get back to their loved ones, but she's moved beyond chasing Sonic and trying to trick him to marry her, which, looking back, was really weird. So these conversations move the story forward, and to do that, you gotta keep collecting these memory tokens. I will say some of the conversations you unlock feel a bit repetitive. Like a good chunk of them go, "The Ancient's technology sure is neat. Yup. Okay, bye." I learned after beating the game that Ian Flynn, one of the main writers for the IDW Sonic comics, wrote the story for this game. And I think that's awesome. He did a pretty great job working around the challenge of the majority of the characters being basically ghosts and unable to interact with the world by making the story much more emotionally driven. That does, however, make the plot seem kinda weak on paper. Sonic goes to a new world, talks to his friends, and saves his friends. But it's a lot more than that. There's no better example of that than with Eggman. He's literally trapped in cyberspace, so kind of out of commission for the whole game. But his new creation, the sickly Victorian child, takes his place. Her name is Sage, and she can jump between the cyber and physical world like Sonic. She's a first for the Sonic game series, as she's the first character to actually care for Eggman. She wants his acceptance and to protect him, and in turn, Eggman grows close to her. Like, I wouldn't say Eggman has been a one-dimensional character this whole time, but he grows exponentially just by having someone else to care about. He's a daddy now. And I know for some people he was already a daddy.
Oh, yeah.
But the father-daughter relationship really makes you care about what happens to him. After you get your vault keys, you free some Chaos Emeralds, and this game continues the proud tradition of Keister stashing those precious gems. Sage shows up and activates this Titan, and this thing is scary. He friggin' fastballs Sonic into a cliff. Now we know why we need the Chaos Emeralds. Only Super Sonic can take on Giganto, and yes, that's its name and I love it. So after a bit of wandering around and doing little tasks to expand the map, I found a few Chaos Emeralds, but there doesn't seem to be any more of the vaults around. The game says to go talk to Amy, so I do. And now I'm doing weird little mini games for the Coco? I wouldn't call this part a win. You gotta herd the Coco, but you can't use any of your abilities, so you walk around all slow like. Cut the grass, cause Amy said so. Regardless, doing your chores nets you some Chaos Emeralds. Wait, those f***ing Cocos have been holding out on me? But this is where the somber game turns into a dark game. You reunite this Mama Coco with her baby, and bam, they die. But they seem happy about it? There's a mystery here, and it's getting deeper and deeper, and it makes you think maybe I shouldn't be doing odd jobs for these little rock babies. But it gets even weirder when you bring these lover Cocos together with a cutscene of the Cocos inside of what looks like chaos from Sonic Adventure 1? And then they get blown up? What the hell blew them up? Do we have to fight that? This game is getting crazy. But now it's time to face off with Giganto. But we've only got 6 of the 7 Chaos Emeralds. But Sonic says,
Maybe I'll find it along the way.
and you just gotta go with it. Turns out, it's on the very top of Giganto, and you've got to Shadow the Colossus your way up the big boy. Now, if you told me the plan was to mix Shadow the Colossus and Sonic the Hedgehog gameplay, well, first I'd say you should have called it Shadow the Hedgehog. And second, I would say that sounds pretty silly. But it works. This fight is ridiculously climactic. You're avoiding attacks, climbing your way up the Titan. It's a great use of Sonic's skill set. He's never been a hard-hitting powerhouse character. His strengths have always been being fast-moving and fast-thinking. And this really exemplifies that style of gameplay. And then you finally get that 7th Chaos Emerald, Sonic turns into Super Sonic, and the butt rock starts. Oh, it's absolute perfection. I was shocked I was getting this kind of action this early in the game, because normally you only get to beat up one super being as Super Sonic at the end of the game. This game has you doing it multiple times, and it's freaking awesome. You're throwing punches at this giant guy. I spent a lot of time giving him dead arms on accident because I had no idea what I was supposed to be doing. Turns out the big thing I wasn't getting was Sonic's parrying ability, which isn't a lack of skill on my part, because there is none. There's no timing involved in the parry, you just hold down the buttons and you do it. I just wasn't using it. But once you've got that down, you're a lot less pressed for time, because Super Sonic still depletes rings, and if you run out, you lose. Giganto puts on one hell of a rave, but eventually you laser him right through the chest. This doesn't free Amy from being digital though. The disembodied voice says it's time to go to the next island and slap around the next Titan, and we're off. So you fly to the next island and are immediately shot out of the sky. And the Chaos Emeralds fly off all over the island. So I guess we're collecting those again. A little lame. Like, I get the need for this to happen, so there's a gameplay loop, but story-wise, I don't love it. The second island, Ares, is where this game really comes into its own though. You're doing the same things as the last one, but with Knuckles as your buddy. You're going through these portals, collecting the emeralds and cocos, whatever, but running around this desert feels especially good. I kinda glossed over the bosses that drop the portal gears on the first island, but that's because they're kinda glossable. Like, Asura is really intimidating at first, but it's not that exciting of a fight. These bosses are here to teach you the mechanics of the game, but on island number 2, they start to get fun. Except Stroper, that's the one everyone complains about. You're grinding, there's blind spots, you get shot a lot. They were really close with this one, but it's important to, see what you're doing, Sonic Team. But bosses like Tank and Sumo are so fun to figure out. I think Sonic Team had a blast coming up with the gimmicks to damage these. Even Shark, which is mostly just the Flash and Trash QuickTime event, works for me as a lover of things both flashy and trashy. The first time around, at least. This part of the game is great, but once again, that doesn't mean it's flawless. Some camera things still don't work exactly right, a few of the mechanics feel a little off, the pop-in is pretty bad, but these things really don't get to me. They're quirks for sure, but every game has quirks. And maybe it's just because I lived through so many old games with weird mechanics on the Super Nintendo, the PlayStation, and whatever else, that I can deal with this if the game isn't broken. And this game isn't broken. What did start getting to me though were the cyberspace levels. The first level you go through was the Green Hill themed one, which isn't shocking. I don't think Sonic Team can help themselves anymore. They're just gonna constantly force feed Green Hill Zone down our throats. But then you run into Chemical Plant Zone and Sky Sanctuary, leaving me to question if I'm playing the first third of Sonic Generations or a new game. There's also a city level that's maybe City Escape? Or maybe Crisis City pre-Lava Monsters? Anyway, you get to the second island, and those are still the only 4 flavors of level. This really bummed me out. There's a whole plot piece about it using Sonic's memories to create these levels, and apparently Sonic can only remember 4 moves. Is Sonic a Pokemon? If you stare at the level design of the cyberspace long enough though, you'll notice, hey, that's based on Skyrail. But it's not Skyrail, it's Green Sky Rail Hill. Yeah, variety is just lacking in cyberspace. The levels all look the same, and the music, while quite good, just doesn't land right for me. The EDM vibes for the inside of cyberspace make sense and all, and the songs sound good, but still, I miss the days of Sonic running around to upbeat rock with trumpets. I refuse to believe Ska is dead. The music isn't helped by the levels only having those 4 different themes. Like in the older games, the level theme was something you could hang on to. Like if I hear Lava Reef Zone's music, I can picture the fire, the rocks, the choke-out gas machines. But in FronTEARS, I can't tell you what song goes with what level, and that's a bummer for me. Like they're not even named. They're early Mario levels, like 1-1. This could have been a lot more interesting and special, but I don't think it got the time that it needed. Back to the story. It's more of the first island, only now with my boy Knuckles. And this is where you realize that it's not just Amy's character who is their best version, it's all of them. Knuckles is still a hothead, but not the idiot they made him in Sonic Boom. They play up the Sonic and Knuckles rivalry, but they also show that it's matured into a respect and friendship. Dare I say trust. And oh my god, they make nearly every previous Sonic game canon. This game just shoots off references to old games all the time.
These visions, they weren't like what Tikal showed us way back when, were they?
But together you stopped the Ark, overcame Neo Metal.
Whatever assaulted the island sure packed a punch. That was on par with Dark Gaia, easy.
I think Sonic FronTEARS is for all the Sonic Adventure 1 and 2 kids. Getting that continuity, making all those plot points fit together, it made me giddy. Like, my lifetime of being a fan is appreciated for the first time in a very long time. It was really touching, but not enough to earn those tears. And it's not just about these characters and the lore being respected, it's about how they're expanding it. A lot of your conversations with the Sonic pals are about the ancients, the people that came before the Echidna tribe, and their technology. Despite the tech being so advanced, the ancients don't exist anymore, which is this game's big mystery to solve. And damn does it feel like it's been a long time since Sonic Team even attempted a good mystery with a Sonic story. So you're gathering stuff, chatting with Knuckles about how these ruins are actually older than those on Angel Island. This part of the game is just filled with world building and nice character moments sprinkled on top, along with some silly Coco mini-games that once again feel out of place. This is also where I ended up filling out the skill tree entirely. I kinda thought there would be more stuff added after the first page, but nope. I learned all there was to learn, and most of the skills at the bottom of the tree rarely came into play. You use Phantom Rush a fair amount to deal a lot of damage, Sonic Boom to hit enemies from a distance, but the rest were kinda just differently flashy finishers to throw into your attack combo. I ended up using Spin Slash a fair amount though, as it filled the meter for Phantom Rush pretty fast, which remained really useful through the whole game. But mostly you're just spamming the same button for combat, unless you have to parry. Oddly, I didn't mind this repetition much though, because the best part of combat wasn't the punching part, it was the setup to do the punching that made it worthwhile. So we get to the end of the island, and it's time to do a Top Gun style dogfight with Wyvern. This area is tight, and I really liked how this fight looked and felt. It might be my favorite Titan fight in the entire game. And each Titan gets their own butt rock theme? Thank you, Sleeping with Sirens. This is the most right thing I could have asked for. So we leave the desert for the volcanic mountainous region of Chaos Island. Is this really the first time there's been a Chaos Island in this series? That's hard to believe. Huh, it's an old Jurassic Park computer game too. Huh. We lose our emeralds again and do the same song and dance as before. But this island, I was pretty disappointed in this one. Almost every cool open world obstacle course turns immediately into a locked camera 2D jungle gym. The sense of freedom really starts to shrink when you get yourself trapped in one of these 2D moments. It takes a lot of effort to break out of the 2D, so you often end up just doing the same memory token puzzle again for no prize because it's easier than finding a way back into 3D. We find Tails this time, and it's pretty wild that you have to wait this long into a Sonic game to see his best buddy. And it kinda does that same story thing it does every time they give Tails motivation. I'm just your sidekick and that's all I'll ever be. Nah, dude, you're pretty cool. Oh, right, I'm cool. Duh, I forgot. But this time they make it sound like Tails is actually gonna follow through with it. That could be neat. This part of the story also shows Sage starting to like Sonic.
Will you marry me?
Not in a weird way, but she recognizes that he's a good dude and cares a lot about people. She even tries to get Eggman to work with Sonic, as it might be the only way to get Eggman out of cyberspace safely, but Eggman refuses. Her being so conflicted on this island made me start to actually like her as a character. Her goal is to get Eggman out of cyberspace, and she's realizing that the only way to do that, with the limitations Eggman has put on her, is to sacrifice Sonic, who she now recognizes as a force for good. She envies his relationships with his friends, saying that's what she's always wanted for herself. Leading into the weirdest, most unnecessary flashback with this not good music. It's just showing clips we've seen before, all of which are in the exact same location in cyberspace, which makes those story moments with Eggman I was praising earlier look really lazy. They really could have just done without the flashback. We also get a beat up looking Sonic throughout this island. Every time he freed one of his friends from the virtual strawberry things, he absorbed some sort of cyber energy, and it started to corrupt him. So in most of the cutscenes, he looks like a disgruntled dad taking his kids to a water park he doesn't want to go to. A shit ton of trinket collecting and a frustrating ancient pinball machine later. 5 million points? You want me to earn 5 million points? And we're at this island's Titan, Knight. This is the fight where I realized that really partaking in the open world gameplay had accidentally made me a bit overleveled, and I absolutely wiped the floor with him. We're instantly teleported to the next island, that coincidentally looks exactly like the first island. The disembodied voice moves the goalpost once more and tells Sonic to deactivate the 6 towers on this island, and then his friends will be free. And we're back to more 2D jungle gyms. This whole island is just 6 long obstacle courses in that same fixed camera style from the last island. They all lead to the top of a tower and an oddly animated cutscene showing the history of the ancients. This is where we realize that the Chaos Emeralds are from outer space, which is fascinating canonically. But even more interesting is that the only reason the ancients ended up on this planet is they were running away from a massive threat in their Chaos Emerald powered spaceships, and the Master Emerald drew the Chaos Emeralds into the planet. Hopefully they explore that more, because I've got questions. All the while, Sonic is getting wrecked by more of that cyber energy. I honestly felt bad putting the little fella through all that pain, but it weirdly has zero effect on how he plays. He might be running on fumes, but he's still running around at the speed of sound. We make it to the last tower, and if you haven't realized the disembodied voice is actually the evil force that wiped out the ancients, well, now you know. Sonic frees the gang from cyberspace, including Eggman, but he's been fully corrupted by the cyber energy and is dead? Frozen? .exe failed to run? I was so excited to have everyone out of cyber jail, because it looked like it was time for all of them to team up together to fix Sonic and stop that ancient evil. I was ready to hammer people with Amy, punch some folks with Knuckles, fly around his tails, and maybe even do something as Eggman. But that did not happen. Instead, the good guys immediately do a group hug and revive Sonic, sending them back into cyberspace. Guess they didn't have time to make that a thing either. So now it's Sonic, Eggman, and Sage, and only if they work together can they stop whatever killed the ancients. And anyone hoping for a Crash Bandicoot and Cortex Twin Sanity style team up, are going to be sorely disappointed, because it just turns into the same exact thing as the first 3 islands. Oh yeah, by the way, we're on the 5th island now, somehow. Not that you could tell a difference by looking at it. So now we're collecting memory tokens for Sage with the same 2D puzzles as Chaos Island because they ran out of time. So we bond with Sage, collect the emeralds, and Eggman hands us the last one.
Don't you dare lose it!
Thanks. And we go after the last Titan, which we learned from the weird tower cutscenes earlier has had the ancient evil sealed in it. And by this point, we're so overpowered that the fight with Supreme is over in a matter of moments. But that unleashes the evil into space, and it's up to Sonic and Sage, who can now control the Supreme Titan, to stop it. There's this really touching moment of Sage telling Eggman that she has to go save the world and might not come back.
I know what I must do. I must leave you.
I understand. Go. Fulfill your function.
Like, I felt for the guy. He finally has someone he cares about, and they're about to risk their life to save his? And he calls her his daughter. Daddy mode is fully activated. So we go into space, come face to face with a planet called The End. Do one quick time event and it's over? What the Sage sacrifices herself and we apparently stop the evil that the ancients couldn't with all their tech. Sonic returns to land and the gang greets him with hugs and fist bumps. No, not that. But he doesn't seem to care at all that Sage died protecting the planet, while Eggman is over here shook to the core. Like, damn. And yeah, the post-credits show him remaking Sage, completely diminishing her sacrifice, but still, I want nice things for Eggman now, and I'm happy he has his daughter back. But all those feelings were overwritten by frustration. The end fight was a QuickTime event? The story at the end is rushed, some of the cutscenes look rushed, the puzzles and challenges are definitely rushed from Island 3 on. Hell, the last 2 islands are just pieces of the first island they broke off and called new. They did so much right with this game, but apparently didn't have time to seal the deal. I'm guessing Sega did what they do best, set deadlines and spit out video games before they're done to meet said deadline. So what we got was a game that started out so strong, stumbled at the midpoint, and landed firmly on its face at the end. It makes me so frustrated I could just look online and make sure that there wasn't a way I could have got a better ending. Sure enough, there was. I was playing on normal mode, and the boss fight is extended if you're playing on hard mode, but that extension is just the twin gun shooter minigame you've played before, but now it's actually challenging. The planet taunts you the entire time you're playing Ikaruga, saying, "You're not good enough, I am the supreme being." But then you just do the same QuickTime event as before and the game ends the same. Emotions. I felt a lot of them. But which one brought Sonic FronTEARS to my eyes? Was it joy? I felt a lot of it in the first half, and even when I realized the same level of quality wasn't in the second half of the game, I was having a good time. But that wasn't it. Was it nostalgia? Seeing story elements from past games tie together while making all the Sonic characters I've loved for years so much more in depth? It was close, but nah, no tears. Was it the frustration? I certainly got there at the end. Everything that didn't get the time it needed was a major letdown. The Cyberspace levels have only 4 level themes, and the ending. I really was not happy that they didn't put in the time to do a real final boss. But that also didn't make me frontier. I frontiered because I was hopeful. This game is a beautiful end to the Boost era of Sonic games, but it's also an amazing blueprint for what Sonic games can be moving forward. And since writing this script, they've announced free DLC that address some of the complaints. We're going to get to play as more characters and get more story. That says to me that they wanted to put a section where the gang helps Sonic get uncorrupted, but they couldn't get it done in time for launch. I'm so excited to see what that turns into and how much further they can take this. And it gives me even more hope that they're not going to scrap this new Sonic formula. I want to see a sequel to FronTEARS with more of everything. You have something very special here, Sonic Team. Keep working on it. And I think if you work out the kinks in this one, the next one can be something even more special than this one. Because Sonic FronTEARS is special. I enjoyed the crap out of it. I'll probably hop back into it every once in a while and run around the open world because it's just so enjoyable. I'll just keep trying to connect the obstacle courses on Ares Island into one massive playground, because that's where the replayability for me is, at least. And with the new challenge modes added in the DLC next year, there'll be even more to do. Maybe I'll even try my hand at speedrunning it. Who knows? I just hope that the positive reviews, the sales numbers, and the general response for FronTEARS keeps Sonic Team from changing course for the next game.